Hello and welcome to this episode of Animasaurus. My name is Kim and I will be your animation dinosaur for this episode. I'm very excited for this episode. Today we're going to be having a look at the first full trailer for the upcoming feature film Klaus. This is a really exciting time for Netflix and for 2D animation, with Netflix actually giving Klaus a theatrical release on the 8th of November, which means it is then going to be in the running for all the award season, which is very exciting for both Netflix and animation. Klaus is also then up for digital release on the 15th of November. So the trailer's only really hit 2 weeks away, and the best thing about the release date is it's before the madness and mayhem of Frozen 2 takes over the global animation world. Klaus has been developed and produced by Sergio Pablos, and he's got a studio by the name of SBA Studios, which is Sergio Pablos Animation Studios. Well, he's been developing his side project for, I think it's around 5 years now. Netflix has really only come in and backed it in the last 6 months and taken it through as a distribution. But they've been working on it with a tiny studio of, I read somewhere that they've had 2 main animators working on this for the past 5 years. You may not know the name Sergio Pablos too much if you haven't been in the animation world, but he's very well known as being one of the creative minds behind the Despicable Me franchise. He had a huge input into the character design and the story and how that came together. He's also been nominated twice for Annie Awards, once for the character designs with Treasure Planet, and the other time for the character designs on Rio. So he's been awarded stuff, but he also did another film which I loved when it first came out, and it was really hard to get, but it's called Metagol, also known as Underdogs, and he's also was tied up with the development of Smallfoot. So he's been around the industry. He's been around the industry a long time, and he's been around the industry a long time, and he's made a huge impact on it. Hit the like button if you love these movies. His drive and passion for the animation industry reminds me a lot of what Richard Williams has done within the last years as well. He's just been focused and passionate about traditional animation and animation in general. So it's really good that these guys are around and actually working hard on the industry. Now, the story which he's focused on here is a little bit different, whereas it is definitely a Christmas story. But what he's decided to focus on is actually an origin of Santa Claus story. So it's got it's a different take on what a Christmas story usually is about. What we have is a very different, unique origin story. What I do really love about Klaus is its very strong authentics which come from it being developed from a 2D perspective. What this movie is all about is a showcase of what 2D animation can be about in the 21st century. He's really crafted these characters to have really simple lines to them, really clean, simple lines, so that when you look at them you can really follow what's going on and they're not distracted. So, we look at the main character, outstretched hands. It's a beautiful, clean silhouette for when it's going on. And both the characters of Klaus as well, when you look at him, it's very simple shape. It's not cluttered in what he's designed, which makes it very appealing, and it's very traditionally 2D, because if you've got to draw every frame individually, you don't want to have a huge clutter. You want to be able to focus on getting good, clean lines, which is what's really presented well here. And even in really strong poses where there is a lot of action going on here, if we look at what he's framed behind, like the post office in the background, and the action of the character himself is made up of really a clean shape, the big, solid, clean shape, and then also the broken wrist, which is really hard if you've ever tried to break your wrist that far and point that far. It's a part of 2D animation that you always get the artist's imperfections coming through, and that's what gives 2D animation such life and soul. So the frames are always, when you're drawn in 2D, you've got to draw every frame, and you've got to compose each shot within the frame. you tend to spend a lot of time thinking a lot about how the shots work and how they're composed. And silhouettes of characters, especially, are very clean all the way through the trailer. So, which is really pretty to look at and really appealing. There's no wasted motion, there's no clutter. Even though every frame you stop and look at, especially in 2D, you want every frame to be a painting. And when people have put their heart into those paintings, it just looks amazing, which is what I feel when you look at these images from the trailer themselves. When you look at these images from the trailer themselves, there's a lot of heart in each one. Even if it is just a gradient, goes up, sand, sky in the background, beautiful colors on the clouds, and the characters are just really clean. 2D has a lot of soul. The other thing which I really wanted to talk about, especially with this film, where it's really going to shine, is draw parallels to what happened with the last year's really big animation movie, Into the Spider-Verse, and that's innovation. Something that Sergio has talked about a lot, especially in recent press releases, is how much effort they've gone into developing a pipeline which honors and is accustomed or been developed out of 2D, but brings it into the world of what computers can add now, or technically being able to add. They've been able to utilize the software TV Paint for the project. And the things they've really tried to put into this is using, once they've done their, it's a complete custom pipeline which they've put together, but once they've got their 2D drawings, they've utilized depth to create light around the drawings that they've got, and to create depth with light within the 2D drawing. So they're not having to paint all the light or draw all the light within each of these shots, which gives the frames, when you kind of cut them down to being frames, it really brings the frames to life. It adds an extra layer which you're used to seeing, but it's in a style, that 2D drawn style, which you're just not accustomed. We're not accustomed to actually seeing, which is the innovation in itself, which I think, which I hope will be rewarded with nominations in themselves. Because when you look at these frames, you just look at like how that the glow happens around the window. And the candle lights which they see, they are just stunning. Like, they are pieces of art in themselves, which you could just, if you could get a print of it and put it on the wall, it would be amazing. This one in particular, I really love the way that the light comes through the background, and it's all casting shadows with volumetrics, and you've got the light haze from the window. But again, this is me as an artist looking at this going, to paint that, or to actually color that in 2D would be incredibly hard, and such a key thing to do. And I'm sure they would have had to indicate it when they're actually drawing the flat colors on this, but with the extra added light details in it, it really brings the frames to life, which is beautiful. And why the 2D, when you look at this, it does not look at all like a 2D feature. So the next thing I want to actually talk about is the animation style. There has not been a 2D animated feature for a long time, which means you can get away, when you're doing this, you've got to use different techniques for making the film look incredible. So instead of getting motion blur, you'll find that, just like with the Lego movie, there was no motion blur. But with inside Klaus, they can then start using things like smear frames and extended, exaggerated positions for fast movements. Like with this sequence, you watch the size of the hand as he starts moving around. He's got lovely flowing arcs all the way through, but as you step through frame by frame, these are really close together frames, but you can see the size of the hands change, but there's a real clear arc in the animation about what direction things are going to be traveling. But look at the big smear, the big shape change on his head and the length of his hands as he goes through. And then this really caught my eye as he changes position. He starts to drop, and 1, 2 frames, he's out. This little sequence caught my eye as well. It's something that's really hard to animate, just in general, is to get life out of your hands. A lot of people talk with their hands. A lot of people do a lot of things with their hands. But some people don't. So when you're actually talking, you're really not thinking about talking too much with your hands. It's not like you use your fingers to elaborate words that much when you're talking. But I found this little sequence really fascinating as Jesper talks with his hands, and someone's had to go through frame by frame. Remember, someone's gone through frame by frame, drawing these fingers out and this finger motion, which he's doing one by one. And I thought that was really, really pretty to go through how they've gone and actually picked out those finger motions. And this one I found really fascinating as well, because it just gives you a look at the timing of animation. When you break it down one by one, I'm looking at what I'm really focused on for this was how quickly the doors in the background dropped compared to how quickly Jesper jumped, or his reaction to the sound that's coming. But look quickly on this one at the back. He starts off, he's already taken that wall down, so the hood started moving. Jesper's only just starting to move, and in one frame that door is closed. Jesper's hardly responds, he's just started moving back. The next two, they're starting to take their blinds down. Another frame, Jesper's moving now, he's got himself starting to stretch out, but the two blinds didn't move over this frame. The next one, Jesper's getting higher, he's at his full strength, the doors still have hardly moved. Next one now, you can see that the door's nearly closed on that second hut, while the third hut is still wide awake. Boom, there it is, it's closed, and the next one's closed as well, and Jesper's now towards the top of his jump. I found that little sequence really, really interesting, just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So for this movie, I am thinking about my 5 rating, how I'm going to give this one. I have been waiting for a long time to see this. Like I said, I think it's been like 4 or 5 years in development, and I've been wanting to see what they can do with the software and wanting to see what Sergio and his team of animators can actually put together and how they're going to come about with a story. I originally thought, it was a story about a postman, but I didn't think it was going to be a Christmas story with snow or anything. So with this one's got a lot, for me, this one's got a lot of my heart tied up in it. I'm very excited about this, even though I've had absolutely nothing to do with it. But for me, I think this one in a couple of weeks' time is going to be watched straight off the press, and I am going to give this one 5 Jespers to watch. So leave me comments down below if you think you're going to be able to see this one in a cinema. Otherwise, everyone else who's waiting to go see it in Netflix, I think it's going to be an absolute ripper. It's my Christmas flick for the year. Alright, thanks very much guys. Until the next time, say ya.